Good morning and welcome to Rooted. I wonder if, like me, in the midst of travel restrictions, you have been reminiscing about past holidays or trips. Recently, I have been thinking about a family holiday we had in Vence in the south of France a number of years ago. And while we were there, we visited Matisse's chapel. Our children were accustomed to being dragged round old dusty churches as a special treat on holidays. But this chapel was a bit different because it was very bright and modern. Matisse designed the entire chapel himself, from the layout of the interior to the modern stained glass windows to the artwork that he drew and installed on the walls. And I remember that there was just something very special about being in the chapel. And just something about the design that seemed to facilitate worship. But at the time, I couldn't really have explained to you why that was the case. But recently I have been reading a bit more about how Matisse approached the design of the chapel, and I want to share with you some thoughts about one of the drawings that he installed in the chapel, and hopefully that is coming up on the screen now and you can see it. It's called The Virgin and Child, and as you can hopefully see, it is a very simplified drawing of Mary and Jesus. Looking at it, you might think, that's not very Christmassy, it's a bit dull, or my 3-year-old could have drawn that. But can I encourage you just to look a bit more closely at how Matisse has drawn it. Matisse has drawn Mary and Jesus with their heads touching, which is an acknowledgement of the bond of love between mother and child. Mary's hands are also drawn quite loosely, and they're neither holding on to Jesus nor restraining him. Matisse has chosen to draw Jesus not as a babe in arms, but as a toddler standing on Mary's knee. And his arms are drawn outstretched, foreshadowing his death on the cross. It's such a poignant image, focusing us on the suffering and the sacrifice that lay ahead. Mary was still just a girl herself, and yet she to some extent understood that her child's destiny was something bigger, something beyond her own feelings and her own comfort. The image brings to mind Luke chapter 2, and this chapter talks about how Mary and Joseph took Jesus to the temple to present him. And while they were there, Simeon blessed them. But he explained to Mary that as Jesus grew up, he would face persecution. And he said to Mary, "A sword will pierce your own soul too." When I look at this innocent image and think about what lay ahead, it really challenges my concept of what it means to lead a sacrificial life. Am I, like Mary, prepared to hold things which I cannot actually keep anyway, a little bit more lightly? Am I prepared to give of myself, even at personal cost? I know I really struggle to set aside my own agenda. So, how can I move from just feeling challenged to action? What am I actually going to do? This Christmas, we're all facing some degree of restraint or sacrifice. Perhaps we can embrace it rather than just resenting it. Perhaps we can be more generous and creative in our giving. But let's all resolve to do something. But what of Matisse's image of the infant Jesus with his arms outstretched, symbolising the supreme sacrifice of an innocent and perfect life? God himself humbly incarnated. This image is dark. It graphically shows how God enters into our suffering, no matter how great. We all need to acknowledge this darkness. If you are in a place of suffering, dealing with illness, bereavement, loss, anxiety, you need to know that God is identifying with you, that He is there. Even in the darkest places, the light of hope can shine. And it's only in acknowledging the reality of darkness that we can truly appreciate the light. Matisse symbolised this very beautifully in his design of the chapel. Hopefully in the next image you can see how he designed floor to ceiling height stained glass windows in bright blues, greens and yellows. The Provençal sun shines in through the translucent and transparent glass, and the chapel becomes like a sundial. The light from the windows interacts with the dark monochrome drawings on the wall panels, signifying God's presence in the darkness and the hope of eternal life. This light contrasts with the glitz and the bling of Christmas that we are accustomed to, which, when you're suffering, offers no real comfort. In fact, you probably wish it would all just go away. God's light is the true light of the season, as foretold in Isaiah 9 verse 2, which says, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of darkness, a light has dawned." Only this light can offer hope, even if you can only perceive that light as a glimmer. So think about the true light and hope of Christmas as you switch on your tree lights in the morning. And let me wish you and yours a Christmas filled with true joy.